but I promise it's coming soon. So just get ready to give a big TFCon welcome to our guests.
Oh boy.
I want to hear you guys going nuts. I want everyone to show their love and appreciation to these amazing individuals.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Tomorrow I'm gonna wake up like that song.
Starting with big TFCon welcome to Scott Brownlee. Gregg Berger. Our friend, of course, Gilvezan. And a gentleman you might know, Mr. Frank Welker. I almost brought a mic, but then I forgot.
Let's try it. You're probably thirsty. Yes.
All right. First and foremost, a big thank you from everyone at TFCon for being here, for closing out TFCon LA 2025.
Yeah!
We typically start these panels with kind of getting a sense of your origin story, your background, if you will. So I would love if you could tell us, how did you get started in your career? I know many of you have different backgrounds, like stage, stand-up comedy, ads, commercials. Let us know how you got started in your career, and then what brought you to Transformers. And Scott, why don't we start with you on the end?
Yes, okay. I started out, well, to be honest, I started in college pre-med and got invited to be in a band, and that was the end of my college career. But then I came to LA to go to music school, and in the time with the band, doing demos and that sort of thing, I was very familiar with studios. So when I came to LA, somebody said, you should get the studio. They do, I don't know, some comic stuff. I don't know what it is. It was Marvel Studios. And I started working there. And I think it was the beginning of Marvel at that time. And we did all the shows, so many years, and so many great people.
Yeah! Woo!
What's our next?
More about me. Actually, I went out to Los Angeles to find chicks and go to college. And I knew that, it was the beach town, and, so I coerced three of my buddies from Colorado, and we went out to Santa Monica City College, junior college. And I spent 7 years there. No. But at school, it was fun. I got into plays. That was my first acting really in college plays, so I really enjoyed that. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do, was be in business. And it was either California, New York, or Chicago. And California, like I say, had the beaches, the chicks, good food, and so on and so forth, and Hollywood. So, as I'm trying to make this short, because my life is really long. I have another birthday next week. I could be here all night.
Happy early birthday! Woo! Yeah! Woo! Happy birthday to Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Frank. Happy birthday to you.
Now it goes.
I wasn't training for that, I swear.
Woo!
It's amazing.
Here comes Peter.
Oh, thank you, young man.
Somebody bring up the cake.
Oh, cake too.
Who doesn't want
This is a lively crowd.
Are you having a party?
Well, you young folks in the audience, enjoy it and take your time and enjoy life because it goes by fast. And we're just reminiscing about that as we're lifting each other from chair to table. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your life, young man. And,
Yeah.
be young as long as you can. Don't push it. I mean, I wanted to be old. Because from the day I woke up, I was like, can I smoke yet? But anyhow, so I went to California. I got in the play. I met a gal in the play who said, you should do some commercials. And I said, okay. So she sent me to her agent. I got the first one. I said, this is easy. 12 interviews later, I got my second one. It wasn't so easy, and so anyhow, so I did commercials. Then I started doing some films, a couple of Disney movies, and did the movies and what were the pilots at the time. We do a lot of pilots and so. Then I said, I did stand up when I was in high school in this folk group. I was a singer. I know you don't believe that, right? Scott, you don't believe a singer, right?
I believe.
Yeah, all right. I'm a horrible singer, but I did the comedy group, and part of the singing was comedy. But I knew that, hey, maybe I could take these impressions, which we all do, and everybody usually who does voices does impressions. Some do a lot of impressions, some. So I did impressions and sound effects and voices stuff, and did a stand-up act. One night I was in this club in Westwood, and I was doing a dog and cat fight and dog sounds. And my famous one, of course, is my choking dog. I didn't say it was really good material. But anyhow, in the audience was this guy from an advertising agency, and they were casting Frisky's dog food. And he said, Frank, would you be interested in doing the voiceover for Frisky's dog food? We need the sound of the tail of the dog and the voice for it and so on and so on. And I said, voiceover, what's that? He said, well, just show up tomorrow and blah, blah, blah. So I did the commercial. That was my first voiceover. And then his fiance was working with the network, and they were casting a show called Scooby-Doo.
Woo! Yeah!
So I went in and auditioned with Don Messick and all the guys, and ended up getting the part of Freddy, which was so far away from anything I could do, and it sounded just like me. So that was my first cartoon, and that's how I got in the business, and I apologize for the long story. No trouble.
The directors.
Yeah.
No, and one of the things that made me so happy about getting involved in this whole process, these people, they're just such a nice group of people, and yeah, I can think of one or two irascibles, but I won't name them.
I'm sorry. To take it slightly serious, it was all of that cutting up and all of that bad behavior and all of that everything that bonded us not only as friends for life, but I believe that it sneaked its way into the recordings and created relationships between the characters that wouldn't have otherwise existed.
That energy came through. That energy that we were feeling in that room between ourselves came through, I think. And my gosh, 40 years later, this thing is still, I mean, G1 is still popular. I mean, it's dated, obviously, but people are still enjoying the stories. So it's quite amazing.
Orson Welles recording session.
Oh.
I can. And just to reference most of you probably don't know that in that era, when we recorded a show, all of the actors who could be there, which was mostly all of them, would be in the room at the same time. So that was why there was such energy in the sessions, because these crazy guys fed each other all the time. These sessions were hilarious, and I had to cut out a lot of it. And then, what was the question?
Orson Welles.
Who could forget Orson Welles? The Transformers movie, even though there were a lot of on-camera actors in that cast, we still recorded mostly on song, except for Orson Welles. And he was a very private man, and a man who so austere, such a reputation. Everybody kind of bowed down to him anyway, and his reputation with people was that he expected them to bow down. So he came in solo. And first of all, he came in, the crew in the control room was stripped down to a bare minimum. And he came in, his chauffeur / bodyguard brought him in, and his chihuahua, who sat next to him on a stool, and we had to cut out all the But Orson Welles, it quite simply had a horrible reputation for being in the sessions, and a lot of it came from a tape that circulated around town for years and years, where he got mad, he yelled at the director, he eviscerated the engineer. This poor engineer, he's just there doing his job, and Mr. Welles tore him to pieces. And so when he came in, we were all on edge. And Wally Burr mentioned the tape.
Oh no.
Mr. Welles said, "Oh, I am so embarrassed about that. It was a really bad day, and I went way over the top, and I'm sorry that tape got out, because I'm not really like that." And he wasn't like that. He was delightful to work with. He was unorthodox. And just a couple of quick things, like in the table read with Wally Burr and Mr. Welles, they were going through, and Wally Burr would give him the lead line to his line, and he did that once and then twice, and then Orson Welles said, "You aren't line reading me, are you?" Wally Burr went, no. As I'm sure you're aware, I'm just giving you the lead-in line to your line. And there was a little bit of silence, and he said, "So you were." And we went on with the session, and Wally Burr, he would of course slate each take, so he'd say, "This is lines 34, take 1." And Mr. Welles did a take, and Wally would give him some direction, and he'd say, "Okay, this is line, whatever line I was on, and take 2. And Mr. Welles said, "You aren't going to put all those little numbers in." Wally said, "Oh, no, as I'm sure you know, that we have to put those in so we can find the correct takes." And he said, "You aren't going to put all those little numbers in, are you?" So he started to read with no slating, and I used the Pledge of Allegiance. This is literally how he would produce what he would try to lay down. He would say, "I pledge allegiance to the I pledge allegiance to the flag of the allegiance to the flag. And you know, he was editing as he went along, and he would go back, who put this thing here? He would log things in his mind. I'm quite happy with that, so I'll go back to it. But it was back and forth like that for the whole part of his part of the movie. And we're all thinking, oh, to edit this. And we got done, and the producers from New York, from Soundwave Productions, said, boy, it's running late. Scott, would you mind if we took this back to New York to edit? And I said, no, I don't mind. It was a delightful.
There's some debate about this, but that may have been Orson Welles' last job.
It was. Yeah.
Somebody said he did a moonlighting voiceover later, but I don't know. But this led to Michael Bell at a session when Wally kept demanding more and more takes from Michael. He finally said, listen, that's enough out of you. You're the man who killed Orson Welles.
Well, so that really leads into the next question I was going to ask you, which is thinking back on Transformers and other projects you worked on, what directors do you remember the most, and what do you think from their approach you found the most helpful in your career?
I'll say, we were talking about this before. Wally Burr demanded take after take after take after take. My first job was with a director called Alan Dinehart, who was in the military before, and he was really, really military tough to work with. The best directors that I ever worked with let me do my thing. You know, they wouldn't give me line readings, they wouldn't be there wouldn't be too many takes. There would be like, okay, you're nervous here because there's going to be an explosion any second, so you have to get out of there quick. And they would let me do my job, internalize it and do my job. So those are the best directors that I've ever worked with. The ones that left me alone.
So damn wonderful, and his quote is, I direct these people. Essentially what I do is I hire the best people I can find and tell them which mic.
You think about a voice, is a voice a sound wave?
Yes.
So how
Yes.
were you able to create that effect on Soundwave's voice?
Well, I threw this at Scotty, and then I'll let him tell you what he did with it.
I am Soundwave. Soundwave reporting. Megatron. There are no Autobots in the vicinity.
Yes. Woo. Oh yeah.
I just want to point out that was a repurposed Barry Whiting. This is versatility,
The processing in general for Transformers was very complex, and you get a sense of it when you listen to the show. But each week we would rent the equipment to do the processing. It was tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and we rented because who knew how long this series was going to go. And most of it was based upon, and I'll get the recipe and leave out some ingredients. I don't want to give away the farm. But the basic piece of equipment was a thing called a Sennheiser vocoder, which imposes the articulation of the actor on whatever. And the Soundwave producers wanted a diesel sound for the Autobots and another diesel sound for the Decepticons. And then there were a few other characters that got tweaks on that, but Soundwave was very different, obviously. It's a cassette and it needed to be music, and you know, I went to music school, so I should be able to do that. And we were talking about, okay, I'll give you another element of if we just fed a diesel engine with the articulation of the actor through, it would be very monophonic and it would sound robotic, and they didn't want that, of course. But they
Ironically, robots.
Yeah.
We don't want robots.
So another piece of equipment was a harmonizer, which, okay, I'm giving more some more, but it fed the actor's inflection, the melody of the inflection into the harmonizer with I won't get into all of it, but it would change the pitch of the whatever the background stuff was, usually diesels for most of the characters. But because Soundwave was musical, we had to abandon that idea. And I don't remember if it was your idea or it may have been my idea, but I knew that what Frank did couldn't have tonality to it because it would conflict with the musicality of whatever was going on. So I remembered from Get Smart. He had a character that was Dr. Claw. And I thought that's what we can use to impose the articulation without tonality. And Frank says, well, it was the easiest job I ever did because I didn't have to act, but he did. And the inflection, actually, he had to work twice as hard because there was not much inflection. But then we imposed that through the vocoder, and the background feed for the vocoder was me playing chords on a synthesizer. I'm giving away a lot.
Wow.
Go home and do it themselves.
George Martin over here.
I'm making an atomic bomb.
If it was a sad line, then I play minor chords and change the chords based upon what would have been the melodic inflection. And then if it was a happy line, I'd play 6/9 chords, and it was happy. It was a lot.
Sorry you asked.